Hey, how's it going, everyone? So what am I working on now? Well, I got that F-150. I don't know if you recall. This is from a week ago. I replaced the throttle body on it. Well, that's all good. But if you remember, it had a vibration that I felt. Well, now the customer's complaining about it. He said he's been feeling it. He just didn't pay too much attention to it, but now he feels it's getting worse. So I don't recall. I think it felt like a seized up U-joint or something, but I'm not 100% certain. So I'm just going to take it down my little dead end street here, and I want to see if I can feel. Does that really make sense? I want to see if I can feel whatever's going on, just to verify for when I put it on the lift. So this way, I kind of have an area to look at. And like I said before, I know I've mentioned this in the past. If you have a vibration that kind of comes in quickly, like it's usually like a drive shaft type of a vibration, meaning that it's 3 to 4 times faster than like the wheel speed rotation. That's how you can usually tell, hey, it's a drive shaft related issue. If it's a more slower along the lines of the rolling of the vehicle, then it's usually an axle, a hub, a wheel out of balance, bent type of an issue, because it's a slower rotation. Because you got to remember, the input into the differentials from the driveline of the vehicle, the input is usually anywhere from 3 to 4 times the speed of the wheels of the vehicle, because you have the gear reduction of the differentials. So he dropped it off last night. So let me get this thing, I don't know, you can see the windows are all dewed up. So let me get this thing over to the dead end road, and let's go down the road and see if we can't try to narrow down what I'm going to be looking for once I get this on the lift. All right, so here I am on my little dead end road. We're going to go down the street here, but what I might focus on is this cup. I know that sounds weird, but you can actually see the vibration through the cup. I realized it driving over here. So let's head down the road, and it comes in probably about 20, I'd say, is when you really start to feel it. I don't know if you can see that in the video. See how everything's shaking there? I don't know if maybe my hand is shaking too. But it is a fast vibration that you can kind of feel throughout the vehicle. You kind of feel it in the seat of your pants. Now, feeling it in the seat of your pants usually indicates it's something from the engine, transmission, drive shaft, transfer case, rear differential. That seat of the pants, basically you feel it in the floor, stuff like that. If it was more towards the front differential, but not all the time, if it was more towards the front differential, and definitely in the front axles, the front wheels, stuff like that, you'd feel it in the steering wheel more than anything else. So this, and it doesn't change under load per se. I'm kind of cruising. I can feel it. When you let go, it kind of disappears a little bit. So there, I'm hearing some noise too now. This is a 2-wheel drive, right? Yeah, this is a 2-wheel drive truck. So it's not going to have a transfer case that's making that kind of noise. And one thing I do feel also, you're not going to be able to verify it with me through the video. Let me just pull into the shop here. One thing I feel also, which could explain things, might not mean anything, but when I come to a stop, okay, and I go to accelerate, I can kind of feel like an unevenness, almost like a when I'm coming to a stop. Take off, coming to a stop. I don't know if you could pick up on that. I really don't know. You can hear it too. There. That could be, it's not a broken motor mount. It's there. It's definitely there. I let go of the brake, foot's off the brake, and there it is. Okay. A lot of times what that is, you may feel it, some people refer to it as a stop bump. Some people say it almost feels like somebody tapped them in the rear bumper when they went to go take off. What that normally is the drive shaft for the rear differential. It telescopes in and out of the transfer case or tail shaft of the transmission. when you come to a stop and the rear end comes up, the drive shaft will pull out slightly. The problem is it could hang up and sit there. And when you go to take off, it could pop back in. So you'll get like a thud sensation in the seat of your pants. Every manufacturer's had an issue with this. Every single one. Jeeps were notorious for this at one point on the XJs. And I've seen quite a few Silverados and Sierras have this issue too, where they actually upgraded the yoke for the drive shaft and had a nickel-plated one because something would happen and it would, for some reason, it was hanging up. There's a bushing in the tail shaft that also wears out over time. It's just natural. I mean, you have a spinning shaft in there, it's going to wear out eventually. And what happens is the drive shaft, as it's going to telescope back in, it slightly cocks and gets hung up there. And then all of a sudden it pops free and goes in. Maybe I can show you a visual with something later on. I don't know if I have anything that I can, but we'll see. All right, let me get this inside and let's get this on a lift and see if we can't figure out what's going on. All right, so I got the truck up in the air. It's got ladder racks on it, so unfortunately I have to sit on the scooter seat underneath this thing because I can't put it all the way up in the air. But anyway, so what I was talking about with the slip yoke, and that's what I'm talking about there. Now you can see somebody has put a transmission in this thing. But now, if you grab the drive shaft and you look right there, where the slip yoke goes in, you have some play. That's relatively normal. You're going to have some play. So that's not the concern. The other reason that's not the concern is because this is a two-piece drive shaft. This has a center support bearing. See that? So this, on the rear section of the drive shaft here, this has a slip yoke built in right here, and I'd be willing to bet that this is partially seizing up. Or it's hanging up slightly, like it may have to come apart, get re-greased, and put back together. There's probably nothing really wrong with it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to check U-joints. And usually what I do is I just grab one of the shafts and I try to manipulate it. And you see, there's no movement there, everything's fine. Same with this one. That clicking noise you're hearing, that's just the slop in between the output shaft, maybe the yoke, the inside of the transmission, stuff like that. That's normal. That's nothing to worry about. But now, when we come back here, here's where we're going to find a problem. Number one, if you look at this backing plate, you see there's oil all over the place there. But now, okay, wait, there's no play in this U-joint. However, if you look close, can you see that? Look really close at that oil slinger, or the oil deflector right there, the seal protector. And you hear that clunking? That's the pinion gear hitting the ring gear. Amazingly enough, this thing lost its preload in the rear diff. So it has got bearing problems. And I'd be willing to bet it's probably, the reason it lost its preload, it's probably low on fluid. This side's fine, but it's probably low on fluid. It's been leaking fluid for a while. And that's a big problem. Which rear end is this? This is an 8.8 or it's at the 9 1/4. Oh, it says an 8.8. These are fairly easy to rebuild. But the problem is, whenever I've seen movement like this, and that, I mean, that's, look at the articulation right there. You can, that's quite a bit. The problem with this is, anytime I've ever seen something like this, a lot of times the bearing race that's pressed into the housing itself has spun in the housing. It may not necessarily be the case here, but we're going to have to get the approval from the customer to open this thing up, take it apart, or find another rear. At the shop here, they may not want to rebuild the rear. You know, that's not my call. It's not my shop. They may want to actually just replace the rear. We may have a truck outside with this rear in it, in our scrap pile, but we have to see. Me personally, an 8.8, you know, to rebuild this thing and to replace the whole thing with a secondhand unit, to rebuild it, it probably, with labor, is probably going to cost a little bit more than getting an entire rear end and just replacing the whole thing. But we have to see. We got to price it out. I got to see what they want me to do. But for right now, we're going to wind up sidelining this. So that's the vibration. The vibration is the rear end itself. And hopefully I can get to rebuild it. I haven't rebuilt the rear end in a while for the shop. I have done one here. I've done several in other shops, but here they just, I don't know why. I guess they're not comfortable with doing it, or maybe they had a bad experience in the past with somebody rebuilding a rear end for them. But we're going to see. So anyway, so that's it. So hopefully with that, you got some kind of information as to how to try to locate and find a vibration. Oh, one other thing I meant to point out. Oh, wow. Okay. You hear that? Oh, yeah, there you go. Look at that. Can you see how far in it's going? Yeah, the ring and pinion are going to be shot, too. See that? Because that's the pinion hitting the ring gear. And since the gears have, like, a concave cut to them, or what the heck's the cut called? It's called a... I'm just drawing a blank on what the cut is called. But anyway, because the cut has, like, a curve to it, it's going to pull in and push out. Just like that. So, yeah, the gears are shot. There's no doubt about it. So, yeah, it's going to have to get rebuilt or replaced, one or the other. But what I was going to say, this is a drive shaft weight. I've seen these come off, especially on aluminum drive shafts. I've seen these fly off, and man alive, what a vibration that creates. With the vibration that we felt on this, going up the road, it's like tenfold. You'd be surprised. It's like the whole vehicle shake. It's pretty amazing. But yeah, so just be mindful of that. So when you put it up in the air, look, or when you're crawling underneath it, look for the weights on the drive shaft. Just about every single drive shaft I've ever seen has got a weight on it somewhere. Very, very rarely do you find one that doesn't. But if you look close, you see the mark there? There, that's where it's like welded into place. And what'll happen is if these things pop off, you'll see a witness mark. You'll even see a spot where this was and is no longer there. Especially on aluminum drive shaft, it's very noticeable. Like if you notice this patch here, this isn't from a weight. This is from a label that was on there. But you see what I'm talking about? You'll get a witness mark like that saying that, hey, there should have been a weight there. So you may want to send this drive shaft out, get it rebalanced, or get a new one. And there's a weight there. There's a couple of weights there. See that? But yeah. All right, so anyway, that's really all I wanted to talk about. So hopefully that helped you. You know, if you got a vibration in your vehicle and you're trying to figure out where it's coming from or what's creating it. A fast vibration, basically 3 to 4 times the speed of the wheels. That's usually a driveline related vibration. If it's the speed of the wheels, like a slower type vibration, it's usually the wheels, the actual axles that attach to the wheels, something in the driveline attaching to the frame. And usually if it's a drive shaft, you're going to feel it in the seat of your pants. If you feel it in the steering wheel, it's something else. So anyway, it could be, if you have an all-wheel drive, it could be a front drive shaft that creates it. Like I said, depending on the vehicle, you can feel that type of vibration through the steering wheel. But it would have to be towards the front of the vehicle, meaning the front suspension related stuff like that, front steering components, whatever. But yeah, so, all right, if you got something out of that video, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, guys, have a great day. Keep wrenching.